And tonight we're gonna basically go over team registration process, etc., for specifically for FTC, and talk a little bit about the season. All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna go through a few things here, but I really wanted to kind of go through a little bit of the details. And I don't know, Matt, do you have that the chart up for the pit layout and the other? Yeah, go back to the pit layout one. Whoop. Yeah, so slide 2 there if you can. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about safety at these events. So we have, and I'll show you later a way you can actually get on and actually look at the policy. But the goal here is when teams arrive at events, I mean, one of the biggest concern people have had from a volunteer perspective and from a team perspective has been safety at these events, and how are we going to make sure everybody's wearing a mask and so on and so forth. And so we're trying to make sure that happens. So what will happen here is when you actually come to the venue, the entire team will have to come to check in at the door, all as a group. Everybody will have their temperature taken. You'll have to have a signed consent and release form that you'll turn in at the door. You'll have a questionnaire. They'll go through questionnaire and ask questions of everybody that's there. And basically, if any one person, fails the questionnaire or the temperature piece, we're not going to be able to let the team in. So, and those are some of the things that we want to do. But you also have to have a mask and safety glasses in order to get in. And after you've been screened, you're going to get a paper wristband to show that you have been screened, and then you'll be able to go into the venue, because we know basically that, you may have to make a couple trips to bring all your items into the venue with you. The pits themselves will be, they'll be marked off on the floor, but there'll be nothing in them. So you have to bring your own tables. If you want tables, chairs, all your tools, toolboxes, etc. You have to bring all your own stuff, and, you won't be able to share between teams and things like normally happens. So you pretty much have to be, self-sufficient when you get there. The other piece of the wristband piece is, we want to also make sure we keep track of this, where somebody doesn't say, well, for first hour, this person's going to be on the drive team, and the second hour it's a different person. It has to be the same people that are there through the entire event. And if you look at the layout on here, this is like a minimum sized area that we could put this in, but the minimum size the pits would be 6 by 6, and we would scale them up, accordingly if we had more space to be able to do it. But with that, all the pits are 10 feet apart, if you notice on there, and then we have, in this case, we have a 10-foot kind of perimeter all around between the pits and where any people would be on the field. And then you can see the 3 spots on the field where it says shield, and we're building the clear plastic dividers that'll go in those 3 spots. So the 2 alliance partners will be the 2 teams on that alliance will be separated by one of those dividers, and on the other side, the 2 human players will have one in between them as well. And in essence, if you look at the field layout, they're the ones that actually would potentially be the closest. So that's why we wanted to get that shield in there. And then on all these, we're going to, and we actually bought we have the arrows that go on the floor. So we'll wherever we can, we're going to make one-way traffic. We'll put little X's on the floor and so on, so that we can, teams can do social distancing as much as possible, and kind of go from there. So I guess the other piece is when teams are there, there's no stands or any place to hang out. So the group that's there will have to end up hanging out in their actual pit. So when you're not playing on the field, you'll be in your pit. Going in there. And then the other one is we're trying to keep the teams separate from each other. So in other words, you're in past seasons, it'd be like your neighbor over there is having problems getting their robot running, and you would jump in and go over and help them. And in these cases, we want to not do that. We want to make sure that you'll be staying in your pit. You can help them from afar, but that's about the best that we'll be able to do there. And we will have like hand sanitizer where you come in the doors, and in several places around there, including the bathrooms. The bathrooms will have them. We'll have wipes available for things that need to get wiped down, and so on. So that's kind of what we'll do with that. So the next piece on there is we can flip to the next one, the next chart there, Matt. So on here, this is what happens at an event. What we're trying to do at events. And if you look at the top line on there, it's like, we're going to set up team meeting rooms. So with the teams, the 8 teams that are going to be coming to this event that would be there, would have each of them that we put in their own meeting room. And then when their teams are on the field, we'll throw them into the virtual stands. And those virtual stands will end up being displayed on a screen at the event, and we'll have a speaker there and so on, so that you actually be able to make like you are in the stands, making noise and, that kind of thing, so the team can hear it. And then when they're done, you'll go back in the meeting room, and at that point, it's your team's meeting room. So the team members that are there could actually converse with the team members that are in the meeting room. If they had questions or whatever, they could do it right inside those meeting rooms. The other piece that's on there, the next one down, where you see the people that I have in the green there, particularly the CSA one. So we, to keep the number of volunteers down, we won't have CSAs, at the event. And so you would go over, pick up this tablet, and be able to converse with CSAs, FTAs, even maybe, there's a fair amount of our robot inspectors that actually, are skilled, and that could be on these calls as well in helping out debug it. But so you'd have that tablet. If you had a question, you could go over, ask the question there, or you could pick up the tablet, walk back to your pit, and kind of show off your robot, whatever the problem was, to help you debug it. Then when you come back, then, obviously we've got a few new roles. One of the roles will be kind of a safety person, that in those cases, when you were done with it, we'd make sure that either you wiped it down or they would come wipe down that, clean that, so that the next person could use it, and going through it. The other, I guess, pieces that are there we're trying to, again, keep the number of people at the event to a minimum. And for FTC, we're looking at having potentially just the head ref physically at the location, and we'd have other refs helping doing the scoring and stuff, watching the matches remotely. And as part of that, you'll see we have those 4 cameras there. We plan on doing 4 cameras on the field. One would be a pole camera, getting a view of the entire field, and then the others will be placed in areas that were best for helping making sure the refs could score remotely if they need to. You'll have the audience display there, just like normal. The head ref, etc., will those people would be the ones to start the matches and that kind of thing. So the thing coming out of it, you'll see, is though that we have that Twitch feed coming out of it, and the goal here is, and when you see the event list in a minute, you'll see it, is that we have many weeks that we're going to be doing 3 events simultaneously. One of the questions that came up from I guess the FTC advisory committee asked me about it was, just the amount of time you have in between matches. If your robot, you need to fix it or whatever. Well, in essence, what we're probably going to be doing is doing this so that we do one Twitch feed coming out. We play one match at one venue, and then we immediately start the match at the next venue, and then immediately start the match at the next venue after that, and then go back to the first one. So that'll give everybody, a little bit of time in between there to be able to work on the robot if they have to, if they're in the next match. Because with only 8 teams and they're two alliance members, you could be playing back-to-back matches. So that'll give you some time in between them anyway. So that's kind of the goal there. And if you look at the bottom there, we created a new volunteer role, the commentators, and with the commentator, we're looking to, they would be what you normally would have as your game announcer, but in essence, they would be watching, that group would be watching matches at different places and talking about them. And we're hoping to, at some point, be able to actually, get some clips, some of highlights of some of the matches, and they could go back and kind of recap what happened to fill in any of the spaces where, if we had any dead space. The other piece that we've actually talked about in there also is maybe doing team profiles where they would get online and interview the team, and then they would play that recorded interview as part of some of the dead space in between matches to kind of fill in the spaces in there. So we made it more of a streamlined event. And I think that's about it. The big thing here is, like, the scoring system is running remotely. It's not at the venue, and so on. The other part is, I have gotten some questions from folks about, which manual should I read? Because they have the remote manuals, and then they have the in-person manuals. And unfortunately, there's some errors and bugs in them that they don't actually match, even for things they should match. But in essence, the judging part of our events will be just like the remote. So we'll be running those like a remote event, the judging portion. The other portion will actually be run via the FTC Live, normal FTC Live software. So for those purposes, you'll use the in-person. So the in-person part will be used for the matches, and the other part will be used for judging. And so we'll kind of go from there. And again, we've talked in other town halls. I've talked about it, but I want to basically kind of reiterate. I mean, this hybrid thing is, we're talking about 8 teams coming into play in cohort 1, and then when they're done, they're playing their matches. We're going to bring in cohort 2. Then they're done, we're going to bring in cohort 3, and so on. So there'll be 5 groups that are actually be competing in there. So the key there is you're coming in, you're playing basically what was qualifying matches. The scores from those qualifying matches are what determines your ranking, right? There is not going to be any playoffs between any of the teams in there. So that's what your rankings will be based on, and then that will be matched up with, obviously, with awards, because awards have an effect on what your matches would be as well. So that's I don't know if anybody has any questions about those, but I haven't seen too many come in. Here's a question here. For the FTC FRC rookie grant, if the competition is canceled, can that fulfill the competition clause if we registered for it? I would think so, but I guess that's something I'd have to check with first headquarters. I think that would be true. But again, I don't think that at this point. I mean, hopefully we're not going to have to cancel them. But how do we register for an event? The registration process opens up in November, and we will have. I'll show you the kind of some things we're doing with website next, and the process for registering will actually be through that website. I don't know how many the teams that have gotten rookie grants either, but just talking on that lines a little bit is we actually have the last I looked, at least, we had 26 rookie teams this year. And there are several of them that have not actually paid yet. And keep in mind that if you pay First Headquarters the $275, you're no longer eligible to apply for the rookie grant. So in order to apply for it, you have to have, you have that dummy team number that gets created when you create an account, and go and use that. You apply for that grant, and I think most of the teams are getting them that apply for it. Anybody in need, pretty much, they're giving it out to. So, okay. I'm going to just talk a little bit about about the. I thought it went away there for a second. Talk a little bit about the website that we've actually we've been working on. Now, this is not it's not completed at this point, but it's something that I wanted to share it so you could see kind of what's coming. It has the, it has a section. If you go to it, you can see it's events.firstchesspeak.org. The site will get you to here, and it shows both, but it gives you the schedule at the high level. But if you click on one of them, you can actually go down to the next level. And the big thing in here is, the maps that I've shown everybody along the lines are in here. And if I want to zoom, make it bigger, I can make it bigger. If I want to, go to a team, I can, pick any team here. And if I click on it, you'll see that, in here, it has the distances to the different those 4 different points on there. So you can see that, that team is closest to Petersburg. So they're 48 miles from Petersburg. So they're put into the cluster for Petersburg, but that's where you could go to another venue if you desired. I mean, there's a lot of teams up in this section in between, Richmond, DC and Newmarket that could basically go anywhere. But I put those on there. Our goal eventually is actually so that if you were on that map, you'd actually be able to click on it. And if teams had shared like their generic email address or wherever, you'd be able to actually contact them if you wanted to on there. So, and the other thing on that map, and I guess I'll point it out I'll just pick one of these. And again, these are last year's teams, but if you look at this here, there's that count, and it says count 4. What it is there's 4 teams that are in the same exact location. So these teams are actually not mapped to the street level. They're mapped to the zip code in there. So because the addresses and such that are in the first dashboard, some of them are people's houses. They're not actually, and I don't want to, we didn't really want to share that level of information. So everything is mapped to those locations. If you look on the map, the color of the dots, the darker dots are ones that, because there's 3 dots sitting on top of each other. But yeah, eventually you'll be able to do that in there. That won't be November 1st though. But what we did is and there's only one of these that's hooked up right now that works. We added the scrimmage in here. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but we have this one, that's the Fairlawn one. That's the area that serves the Southwest Virginia teams. And, has the information where it is and all that. And if I want to, it has where do I park. If I click on that, it zooms in. You can, gives you the bigger picture of it. So we have parking in there. We're going to put more detailed schedules. And there's the thing we were talking about, the different cohorts that come through there. So the 5 groups that are going to come through and compete at the event. We have some like team reminder things that we put in there. Some of these are related. They're already in the safety policy, but you have those. If you click on the view larger map up in here, you can do the directions thing. It'll give you directions to the place. And we talked about the COVID, the safety plan that we have. So that's actually out there. and you guys can even look at it, read it, whatever. You can see, with the buttons on there, you can download it, you can print it, whatever you need to do with it. And then also we linked in the consent and release form on here, mainly because this year we're saying we want you to bring that signed form to the event as part of your check-in, because again, that's how we will be able to kind of follow any kind of contact tracing if it was required up to do that in the future. So we know all the people that are actually at the events. The other thing that we have on here, and there's a question that just came up in here. Do you have to pay the fees to be able to sign up for events November 1st? The answer is yes. So when they actually open up, that's when it is. And I'll just go back kind of to here, because I guess I didn't go down to this bottom part. So there is actually a calendar of when things that we have that are coming up. And we add this button in here, if you want to subscribe to it, you can actually, it's a Google Calendar, and you can actually subscribe to that calendar. If you wanted to add it to your own, to your phone or whatever, your own personal computer, you can add it in there as well. But the payments due date is in there. Then the following week, we're going to open up the first preference. And then I guess we got it's for that for that whole week. And then we close that preference and do the first assignment, and then open the second preference, and so on. And then it, goes into all the events after that. But yes, if you do that, if you have your thing in there, your cursor in there, sometimes it does that. If you look at the buttons that are on the side of the screen there, you can, you click on them and it zooms to whatever level those are in. I mean, like even on these, I've got them so you can, when you hover over it, tells you what county that thing is in, or those teams are in. But let me go back. I'll go back to the fair lawn, because the only other thing on here I kind of wanted to do was these buttons. Obviously, there is no team rankings or qualifying matches or anything at this point, but there will be when we do events, and you'll be able to click on them. Like after teams register, this teams tab on here will actually display teams that get registered for that event. So you'll actually see who else will be at that event competing with you. And then as we get going, we'll attach the rankings and actually display the rankings out there. And keeping in mind that rankings get a little trickier because of how we're doing this. The rankings will show up. We'll display the rankings after each cohort so they can see where they stand. But then when the next group plays, after they've only played one match and you've already played 5, they won't mean as much until after that group is done. So we'll post them at the end of every one of these for everybody. But has the rankings, and then when we do awards, we'll do the same thing. Put the awards in here. You'll be able to see what awards got given to what teams and so on. And keep in mind the rankings is based on your score and awards, right? So you might be number 1 in rankings until they actually give out the awards. Once we post the awards, the rankings could change. So we're just trying to make it simple for you to get to information that's out there, and whatever you need to do. All right. I don't know if there's any other questions coming in or not. And so next thing I want to do is actually bring in, I'm going to remove that. And I'd like to bring in Rose Young. Most of you are probably familiar with you, more of the folks in Maryland, because she's has her own Maryland teams, but she's going to be helping try to set up some chats. So we want to do a bunch of chats that you guys want to hear about. so Rose, why don't you introduce yourself and give a little background and go from there.
Hi. So yes, I have met a lot of the teams in Maryland because I've been in Maryland for a while, and I've done some volunteer work and also worked with a number of teams. So I kind of can relate. Some of you do know me, but I'm hoping to get to know the teams in Virginia. A few of you got an email from me asking if you're interested in working with me on kind of my projects. My focus is really, my job is team liaison and community outreach, but to me, training has always been really important. One of the key things that I think we need to provide more of, especially with if we have 20 plus rookie teams, there's just a big need. And we used to host workshops, but we can't do that. So my goal is to look for some options and to work with teams the way I always did when we did workshops. People came in and did workshops. Now we're looking at some other ways to communicate the information and also help people who may be overwhelmed. And so if you feel like you are interested in maybe making that happen, I also think our FTC advisory committee, if some of you are out there, are interested in the same thing. So we have shared goals, and I'm going to try to coordinate that as best as possible. It starts with the chats. Love to see some chats on some really basic things to get rookie teams going. So if you can talk about, how to get your chassis moving, or how to get your phones connected, or how to work with the new control hub, and you'd be interested in your team sharing that, that would be awesome. Also, there's just a plethora of information out there. You all know, on the YouTube and various websites, there's lots of information. But if you're new to this, it's probably too much of a drink from a fire hose. So what we're looking at is maybe trying to find some way to facilitate that drink down to something that won't turn off our rookies. And then the third thing is we can't meet in the pits. We can't support each other in the pits. We can't do that one-to-one. But maybe we can look for a virtual way to set up some mentoring that we would have done in person in the past. So those are kind of my three key things. I'd be happy for folks to communicate with me that you're interested in that. Ron's going to be sharing with Prasad, and I actually do work closely with Prasad, some of the rookie teams. But if you're not hearing from us and you want to reach out, please do that if you're a rookie and you need some help. And if you're a veteran and you have team members who are just chomping at the bit because they can't meet in person or do what they used to do at events, but they have a lot to offer, then also, contact me or contact Ron. He'll pass you along to me, and we're going to try to get ourselves a little working group and do some good stuff for teams.
Good. Thanks, Rose. I don't think if we have any other questions, or will be many more events posted. Just trying to judge timing given very late starts and no meeting yet. Yeah, the number of events are the number of events we're going to have. The exception being is if we have snow days or something like that happens to us. The one of the reasons why we have to compress it as much as we do is because, as you can imagine, these commercial venues are relatively expensive, and that the fact that we're getting them to run both programs. So we're going to run FTC through it first, and then FRC. If you look at the schedule, that's kind of why I wanted to make sure everybody saw that. Is it's immediately followed by a heavy month of March when FRC competes in there. And again, other than the more remote locations we have, only have 2 events at them because that's, what serves the number of teams that are in those areas within that 90-mile radius piece. But again, if your team is able to travel, you can go to one of the other events as well. I mean, they start, I think it's January 23rd and it runs right through February. So. And the dates that aren't on there is and we'll figure that out when we get closer to it, is championships. If we have a championship, how many teams are we going to have at the championship? And so, I get a lot of questions about teams qualifying or whatever. And we're not going to know how many teams we're going to be able to move forward until we can figure out the exact size of the event we can have. And that'll be in that time frame there somewhere too.
Yeah, I hope the teams are just taking into account that we all understand this is a different season, and worrying about whether you're as ready as you might have been maybe isn't as good as just saying, let's get in there and compete and participate. And I want to put one more pitch in there for the scrimmage on October 24th. I've tried to talk to a couple folks to say, we wouldn't be ready. Hey, we just really need to test this whole idea. So if you have something that can turn 4 wheels and push something around the field, this is a great opportunity for you to get in and get a couple of your kids in there to see what this event feels like. And really, it's not competitive. It's really just to get us an opportunity to work through some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So please think about that.
And to add to that, I mean, if you guys looked at the, that chart with all the technology we have to put in place, we want to use that as a test bed for doing that as well. So that's what we're kind of looking to do with that is use that the technology wise also. So, and it'll give you a chance to look at the field, even if you don't have a robot. We currently actually only have one team signed up at each location. So we don't really want to cancel it, and we'll probably have something anyway because we need to test out the technology. But please feel free to come and sign up and bring your robot, last year's robot to compete, even just so we can get something going there. There's one more question there that I think I'd like to answer, that Phil's question, that any plans for criteria for allocating teams into cohorts, and yes, there's your question is exactly what other people have even asked me is yes, we will figure that one out, because if you're coming from you're going to be one of the further teams away from coming to a venue, you wouldn't be in that first cohort that started first thing in the morning, because it wouldn't, we want you to be able to get there and be awake to compete and then be able to drive home at the same time. So that might be the case. We try to put you in the middle one. The other one I know is some people have asked, for religious reasons, we may have to shift folks around also. So some can't compete on Sunday, some can't compete on Saturday, and whatever that is, we're going to try to accommodate all those things the best we can. But the travel thing is definitely something we will take into account. Okay. I think we're good. So I guess just to kind of close it out, thanks everybody for attending. And if you have questions, you feel free to contact Rose or I, or Prasad, about anything FTC anywhere. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, Newport News Shipbuilding, and we have a short video to follow.